Thank you very much for having us here today. What's the name of the exhibition today?
So I guess it's called Forbidden Words. Started off as a bit of an open studio, but the space is so nice I decided to curate it a bit like an exhibition.
Yeah.
And Forbidden Words is the name of my small poetry book that I've just kind of released.
It's over there.
Yeah.
And could you tell me a little bit about the giant pivot that you made from your kind of previous style range of works that you've been developing since?
Sure.
We kind of met. It was quite a long time
ago.
ago.
Yeah, because we met 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was very invested in the cubism genre of work, and those were pieces of art that I made because I was always very inspired by Cubist masters, you know, from Picasso to the more contemporary George Condo, also going back, Braque, Duchamp, existentialist Cubist artists that I've always looked up to. And I kind of went through a process of discovering who I was as an artist when I ventured into Cubism, but it was always something that I made because I looked up to those styles, that genre, those artists, and I wanted to make my own version of that, almost. But I felt like a part of me was always kind of missing in those pieces, and spray paint was something that I used to do when I was quite young, and I always incorporated it into what I was doing in the Cubism kind of phase of my work. But this now feels more like my own identity.
Rediscovered.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not trying to make something where that's my version of a genre.
Yeah.
This feels like it's my own thing, it's original, it's my identity. And I've been making these for years, but I never really showed them to people because I would share them sometimes, but just not much because I was kind of a bit scared of the shift, you know, like it's difficult when you're an artist who's very invested in a genre to make a pivot like that, and you know, you don't know how it's going to be received and what people will think. So it took me a few years to just like come to the realization that like this is what I feel is more natural and organic for me. And I spoke to collectors and artists, and they would always say like, your spray paint work, like this is the stuff that like really stands out to me. And I just kind of put it off for so long, and now like I just one day I woke up and I was like, no, I need to do this. And I just went for it, and it feels like now every piece that I make, I'm just so happy with.
Yeah. The process, the rediscovering of your kind of initial craving to create.
Yeah, and it takes me back to that more cathartic side of making art, because when
they're way more, if I may interrupt, sorry, they're extremely expressive and emotional, these pieces. I think way more than the previous style, if you
yeah,
can put it
for
this
sure.
way.
I think with the previous style, I was being very direct with my audience and trying to kind of tell a story, which was great because it enabled me to learn about storytelling and narrative and context as an artist who I was. But this takes me back to that cathartic side of like really relieving like stress and pressure and using art as like a medicinal tool almost, which is why I started painting in the first place. So like the Cubism was always very constructed from things that I was inspired by, and I was always trying to make something, whereas this just feels organic, and I don't feel like I'm trying too hard to do anything.
Even though you shifted from this, if you can put it so in quotations, the previous style, what I love is that you can see a clear link from the figuration. It kind of is intertwined in this current body of work, but at the same time it's so fresh and so you. Yeah,
I mean, if you have a closer look at these, like you can see that there's still elements of that work in there. So like the way I used to work, I would start with spray paint And then I would build these kind of lines and structures and figurative elements into the work with oil pastel and acrylic and build a cubist scene, if you will. But now I do that in reverse. So I start with oil pastel and acrylic and create a scene, and then I go over it with spray paint, so that the previous methodology is not lost as well. It's still very much part of the painting, and you can see it. I don't know if you can see here, there's like a hand from an acrylic, from some oil pastel, and there are lines and eyes and shapes that kind of pop up when you come a bit closer, and like even just like more abstract like splatters of paint and stuff like that. But it ties in quite well with the context of the work and the dialogue of the work being about layers and who we are as people, and like trying to peel those layers back and understanding ourselves as individuals, because the work is still cubist or not. The context for me has always been about mental health, self-reflection, healing wounds, and processing, emotions, and trying to destigmatize male vulnerability. I mean, like from my perspective as a man, but
I love how these previous experiences now being used as these tools, almost to put it this way, in a way, in this new style.
I've tried not to lose any of that, even though it's been quite a shift visually. Like if you come close to the work, you can see that there's still very much elements of what I worked on for years.
And it adds so much depth from the layer perspective, from the historic aspect of your practice. And speaking more kind of broadly, the history and the styles, it's such a prevalent phenomena in artists' lives. You were talking a little bit about Picasso a minute ago, how many styles he went through, and these are the most, even though each style might be the most differentiating from the previous one, at the same time, this is what makes this artist the artist, that these style are the steps in this like a ladder to the entirety of his creation.
But I included some older pieces, like this one, for example, which is from 2018, in this collection, because I wanted to share the fact that I've been experimenting with this style for years. I just noticed that it's not on canvas. This one is on cardboard, and then it's wrapped in masking tape.
Illusionary.
Which creates this kind of an illusion, but I also like to use tools. So sometimes I'll cut my canvases, and I'll use a hammer, and I'll make incisions and stuff like that. It's a very cathartic process.
And one more piece that's from this earlier kind of experimentation.
This is also from 2018.
This one is so strong in the emotion, the red, this expressive figure that it's disintegrating. It's beautiful. It's
probably one of the most figurative pieces in the collection.
Yes, I'd say so.
It's less abstract. It still is, but it has much more definition in that sense.
Okay. Thank you very much for.
No worries. It's a pleasure to show you around.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers.